Hello and welcome to Right Sports Talk. My name is Zach, and with the NFL season kicking off in a couple of weeks, I just wanted to go over my NFL division predictions. Today, I'm going to go over my predictions for each AFC division, and then probably next week I will go over the NFC. But to kick it off, I want to talk about the AFC North. Now, the team that I think finishes in first place in the AFC North is the Baltimore Ravens. They won the division last year. Ultimately lost to the Bills in the division round of the playoffs. But I still think they're a very talented team. I think they're the best team in the division. They didn't really lose any key pieces to their team. I think they actually got better in the offseason. Especially on defense, they brought in Jair Alexander, who, when healthy, is a very good corner in this league. And they drafted Malachi Starks out of Georgia to really help that safety room, which their secondary was a big concern for them at points throughout the season. I do think that they kind of addressed one of their bigger needs, which was fixing the secondary. They also have Lamar Jackson, who was in the running for MVP last season. They still have Derrick Henry, who's one of the top running backs. They still have two very talented tight ends in Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. I think they have a good enough receiving core for what they want to do on offense. So I do think the Baltimore Ravens will still be the best team in the AFC North. Next up, the team that I think finishes in second place in the AFC North. This is kind of a toss-up between two teams, but I think the Pittsburgh Steelers come in second in the AFC North. So this is the team that last season finished 10-7, and then was second in the division last season. Made the playoffs, lost to the Ravens in the wild card round. Then since then they've made a switch at quarterback. They have Aaron Rodgers. It's no longer Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. They did get rid of Najee Harris, but they still have Jalen Warren. They drafted Caleb Johnson of Iowa, who kind of fills that Najee Harris role of being a very good power back for them. They brought in DK Metcalf and Jonnu Smith. DK Metcalf, a very talented receiver. Jonnu Smith, kind of a do-it-all tight end. They also have Roman Wilson, a young wide receiver that has been playing very well throughout camp. They still have Pat Freiermuth, the tight end. I think offensively they should still be fine offensively with Aaron Rodgers running the show. I know he had a bit of a down year last year with the Jets, but his numbers were kind of comparable to CJ Stroud. So I think if he's anywhere near there this year, I think offensively they're perfectly fine. And the reason I think that the Steelers can do well and finish second in this division is their defense. They have TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, who are very good pass rushers. They brought in Jalen Ramsey in the offseason, traded for him from the Dolphins. He's still a very good corner, although he is a little bit older, being a 30-year-old corner. They have Joey Porter Jr., so their secondary is pretty good. Their defense is really good, especially their pass rush. So I think their defense will do a lot to keep them in games, and I think their offense will be good enough to once again get them to a round of winning record. I think they're going to be somewhere between 9-8, 10-7, that range, and be competing for a wild card spot, if not make it in as one of the final seeds. Now, third place, team that I could see finishing in second, but right now I think they finish in third, is the Cincinnati Bengals. They are a team that last year at the end of the season they came on really strong, especially offensively. Joe Burrow was playing at an MVP level. Jamar Chase was in the running for Offensive Player of the Year. T. Higgins played very well at the end of the season. So the receiving game did really well. Chase Brown, the running back, played really good in the back half of the season when he became the full-time starter. My biggest concern for them is their offensive line. Looks like their offensive line is not all that good. I think they got worse from last year. And their defense, which was not very good last season, and they have multiple games where they scored 30-plus points and lost. I think their defense, once again, might be worse than it was last year, as they had a key piece of their defense, Sam Hubbard, retire, and he was one of their better defensive linemen. He's retired. Their leading tackler from last year, Gerald Pratt, is now with the Raiders, and their leading sack leader, who led the NFL in sacks last season, Trey Hendrickson, has a possibility of being traded, and he does not want to play under his current contract with Cincinnati. I think, their starting defense is in shambles right now, so I cannot trust their defense. I cannot trust their offensive line. So I do think that they finish in third in this division. And the team that I think comes in last place is the Cleveland Browns. They are a team that I think they are very talented, especially on defense, with Myles Garrett and Mason Graham, who they drafted in the first round this year. But a lot of their questions come offensively. They did just name Joe Flacco as their starting quarterback. However, he is a 40-year-old quarterback. He's been in the league since 2008. He didn't play really well last season when he had a chance to play for the Colts. So that's kind of their biggest question mark, because they have talent at receiver. They have a talented receiver in Jerry Jeudy. They have David Njoku, a very talented tight end. At running back, they have Gerald Ford, who is he's a very good do-it-all back, can do a lot of things very well. They have Dylan Sampson, who's a rookie, who can kind of be a home run threat at any point. But one of their most talented rookie running back, Quinton Judkins, has not signed his contract. He had some legal issues earlier in the offseason before being able to get a deal done with Cleveland. Those legal issues, the legal investigation is passed. The NFL can still do investigations. They have not agreed on a contract yet. I just don't really trust what this Cleveland Browns team can be, especially right now. I don't know how Joe Flacco is going to look. If Joe Flacco starts off poorly, I don't know how Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel or Kenny Pickett, whoever they have as their backup quarterback throughout the season, is really going to look. So for now, I do think the Cleveland Browns come in last place in the AFC North. Moving on to the AFC East, the team that I think wins this division is the Buffalo Bills. They're on paper and in theory the best team in this division. They have Josh Allen, a quarterback who was the MVP last season. They have a very talented defense. They brought in Joey Bosa, who's a very good pass rusher when healthy. They still have Matt Milano at linebacker, who's one of the better linebackers in the NFL. They got James Cook a new contract. So he's back practicing. He was holding out for part of training camp. They have a very good running back tandem with James Cook and Ray Davis, their second-year running back out of Kentucky. If there's any big question marks, it is their wide receivers, but I think last season proved that Josh Allen doesn't need the greatest receiving core in the NFL to still succeed. He is, a top quarterback in the NFL, and he's going to be able to carry this team to another division win. Second place in the AFC East, I actually think it's going to be the New England Patriots. If anybody's watching any of my other videos throughout the offseason, I'm very hyped on the New England Patriots. I'm very excited for what they brought in the offseason. I'm very excited for what this offense can do and the defensive pieces they brought in. I'm very excited for Mike Vrabel as their head coach. I think with Drake May going into his second year, I think Will Campbell, their rookie left tackle, will play very well in protecting Drake May. I think Travion Henderson, their rookie running back, will do very great in this offense. He's a very explosive player. I like the receivers they have. Stephon Diggs, coming off his knee injury, looks very healthy. Kyle Williams is a very explosive player. Mario Douglas is still there. He's a very consistent receiver. I just think that this team can do good enough to, I think, compete for a playoff spot. They're a team that I think can win somewhere between 8 and maybe possibly 10 games. I don't think it's enough to really compete with the Bills in terms of winning the division, but I think it is enough that they will finish second in the AFC East. Moving on, the team that I think finishes in third in the AFC East is the New York Jets. They're a team that, after last season, completely cleaned house. Partway through the season last year, they fired their head coach, Robert Saleh. The Aaron Rodgers experiment did not really work out in New York. Bringing in Devontae Adams to pair with Aaron Rodgers did not really work. Rodgers is gone now. Robert Saleh is gone. Devontae Adams isn't there. They've kind of brought in, trying to bring in a new cultural identity. They brought in Aaron Lewis, the defensive coordinator from the Detroit Lions, to be their head coach, and he has, a very hard-nosed, play good defense, run the football style approach to Coaching, they brought in Justin Fields to be their starting quarterback, which I think primarily will help in the running game. They have a very good running back tandem with Breece Hall, Brendan Allen, and Justin Fields with his ability to run. They still have Garrett Wilson, who's very talented. They've improved their offensive line from last season, and I think their defense will also look better under Aaron Glenn. I called him Aaron Lewis, Aaron Glenn. Their defense will look significantly better under Aaron Glenn, especially considering what he was able to do in Detroit, especially with Detroit having so many injuries last season and having to have like backups, practice squad guys. So I think Aaron Glenn can really help out this defense, and that will be one of the big difference makers for the Jets. But I ultimately think they do finish third in the division. And finally, I think the Dolphins come in last place in the AFC East. As talented as their offense is, as talented as Tua is, as talented as Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are, as talented as Devon Achane is, but he's dealing with what appears to be a calf injury right now. I can't trust their offensive line. Their offensive line does not look very good, and that's not very helpful for a player like Tua, who he doesn't really like to run around a whole lot. But if he gets hit, he's had concussion issues. If he gets hit and he suffers another concussion, you don't know how long he's going to be out for. And without Tua, this offense doesn't run smoothly. We've seen it last season. Tua missed like half the season, and the Dolphins offense took a tailspin. They could not do anything well. I also can't trust this defense. They've had so many injuries to their defensive backfield. They have guys like Jack Jones starting at corner right now. They keep having their young pass rushers go down with minor injuries. They did sign Matthew Judon recently to a 1-year contract, but he's getting up there in age. Don't really know what he's going to do this season. They did bring in Mika Fitzpatrick, trading for him from the Steelers and part of the Jalen Ramsey trade. But he's a very good safety. He can only do so much to help this defense. And the rest of the defense around him is not all that good, especially with how many injuries they've suffered. So I do think that they will finish last in this division. Moving on to the AFC South, the team that I think wins this division is the Houston Texans. They've won the division the past 2 seasons. Still have C.J. Stroud as a very talented quarterback. They have Nico Collins, very good wide receiver. They brought in Christian Kirk in the offseason, and he looks to be the number 2 receiver right now. They brought in a couple of other receivers in the draft, and Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, who were very talented. Their defense is a fairly good defense. D'Amico Ryan's a defensive-minded head coach. That really helps them out. My major concerns for them right now is their offensive line. They had issues on offensive line last season, and they traded away their best offensive lineman, Laramie Tunsil, in the offseason. And the running game is a question mark for me right now because Joe Mixon is dealing with some sort of foot or ankle injury. He hasn't been able to participate in training camp. They brought in Nick Chubb, but Nick Chubb is coming off of severe knee injury 2 years ago, a broken foot last season. He just doesn't look like, he looks like a running back that's had 2 injuries-prone seasons. He looks a little slow. He doesn't look all that great right now. They do have rookie running back Woody Marks, but you don't really know what you're going to get from him. But I do think that overall this Texans team is talented enough to win the division. The team that I think finishes in second in the AFC South is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Another team, they're very talented. They brought in Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator from the Buccaneers last season, to be their new head coach. I think that should really help out Trevor Lawrence. And I think the key to Jacksonville performing well starts with Trevor Lawrence. He is the guy that's supposed to be their franchise quarterback. When he is playing well, this team is doing well. They brought in Travis Hunter in the draft, who is very talented wide receiver and corner. I'm still excited to see how he does both of those in real NFL competition. But he looks to be like he's going to be in the starting rotation as a wide receiver. Obviously, they still have Brian Thomas. They drafted last season, who was a great rookie. They have a pretty good running back room with Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, and rookie Rochelle Tootin. So I think they're a very good running back group. I think their defense pretty good, but as long as Trevor Lawrence is healthy and playing well, I think Jacksonville will do good enough to at least finish second in this division and could possibly compete for the division title. Team I have finishing in third place in this division. That's another thing that I could be like. I think it's a very close race between third and fourth. I think the Indianapolis Colts finished third in this division. Their other team, they're very talented. They brought in Tyler Warren in the draft, a very talented tight end out of Penn State. Can really kind of do a little bit of everything at tight end. Very good defense. This is a team that I talked about as well as Jaguars as a kind of sleeper team that I have going into this season. But my biggest question mark for them is quarterback. So right now, it's a competition between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. At time of recording, I don't know who they're going to name the starter. I don't have a whole lot of confidence in either one of them. Neither one of them has really done anything spectacular in the preseason thus far. I'm recording this after the second preseason game. Neither one of them has really done anything to really stand out. I think if they have a player that the quarterback could just play well enough and not make a whole lot of mistakes, this team is talented enough, especially on offense with Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, that they can win football games. But it all comes down to how consistent their quarterback is, and Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson are two very inconsistent quarterbacks. So now the team that I have finishing in fourth place, but honestly could see them making a case to be third and really pushing the Colts, is the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee is a team that was the worst team in football last season. They had the number 1 overall pick, which they used on Cam Ward, quarterback from Miami. I think he can play very well. It's a very tough test, but week 1 of the season where they play the Denver Broncos, who have a top tier defense in the NFL. But I think if he can kind of get through that and show flashes of playing well, I think this Titans team will surprise some people this season. They have some talent around him. They've been trying to beef up their offensive line the past couple seasons. Calvin Ridley, who with a combination of Will Levis and Mason Rudolph, still busted out 1,000 yards last season. He's a very talented receiver. Running Tyler Lockett, we know what he's going to do. They have Tony Pollard in the run game, who's kind of similar to Jerome Ford for the Cleveland Browns. He's somebody that can do everything well. He's not going to wow anybody with anything amazing that he can do, but he can do everything well, and he can be just good enough to be a very good running back in the NFL. As talented as I think the Titans are, it is still a rookie quarterback that needs to adjust to the NFL. I think early on he might start to struggle, but towards the end of the season they could start to catch on. But ultimately, I do still think that they will finish last in the AFC South. Now, finally moving on to the AFC West. In first place, shouldn't really be a surprise to anybody, I think the Kansas City Chiefs win the division. They've won the division every year since 2016. They still have a very talented defense with Chris Jones kind of leading the helm for them. They have George Karlaftis, who's another very talented defensive lineman who just got a good contract in the offseason. Offensively, they looked to improve their offensive line from last season, which was a big question mark for them. They brought in Josh Simmons, left tackle of Ohio State, in the draft, who looks to be one of the better offensive tackles from this draft class already. And pretty much the reason he was able to fall to Kansas City is because he had a knee injury in October of last season, so people didn't know what his knee was going to look like. But he has been very dominant in Chiefs training camp. Still, obviously, still have Patrick Mahomes. Still have Travis Kelce, who's still a very talented tight end. They have Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt in the running game. They have a rookie running back, Rashard Smith, who is actually very good in the receiving game to help them out. I think that they are still, have too much talent to finish anywhere except first in the division. Well, they have a down year from last year? Probably. But last year they went 15-2 and, were runners-up in the Super Bowl. I still think that they can, finish with a very good record. They still get, I think, probably still around 12, 13 wins and still compete for a Super Bowl. I think the Chiefs finished first in the AFC West. Moving on, the team I think finishes second in the AFC West is the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos are a team that really came on the back half of last season. Bo Nix in his rookie year really caught fire at the end of the season. The defense played very well. They're still a top defensive unit in the league. I think that Bo Nix can kind of make a jump from from year one to year two, and be even better than he was at the end of the season last year. They still have Courtland Sutton, a very talented wide receiver. They brought in the running game RJ Harvey. They drafted in the second round, just a very good running back out of UCF. They also signed J.K. Dobbins, who had a very good season last year with the Chargers. He did miss some time due to an injury. He comes back healthy. I think he can really help them in the run game, where they struggled a bunch last season. When they came in, RJ Harvey can help improve their run game. They desperately need it. Still have good receivers. They brought in Evan Ingram at tight end. Tight end is a position they've needed for a few years. They need somebody that can be, a very good receiving threat, and I think they have that with Evan Ingram. I think, Bo Nix taking a second-year leap, the talent they have on offense, and how good their defense is. I don't think they will really threaten the Chiefs too much to get first in the AFC West, but I do think that they could comfortably finish second and, make a playoff run, or, be a playoff team. Now, the team that I think comes in third place for the AFC West is the LA Chargers. The Chargers and the Broncos are actually kind of a very similar stylistic-wise teams. Chargers and Broncos are both teams that play very good defense and want to try to run the ball. I think that the Chargers can do that, but their defense is not quite as good as the Denver Broncos. It's one of the reasons why I think they finished behind the Broncos in the division. Obviously, the Chargers have Justin Herbert at quarterback, who's consistently talked about as one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. They have Marion Hampton, a rookie running back they drafted in the first round, who looks very good. They have Ladd McConkey at receiver. They also brought back Keenan Allen. But that's kind of their biggest question marks, is their receivers, especially outside of Ladd McConkey, of who can kind of fill the role and be a number two guy. They drafted Trey Harris in the second round, but he's had his struggles in training camp. Quentin Johnson has had struggles the past 2 seasons. Going into the year 3, he's having those same struggles with not being able to catch the ball very well. They lost their cornerstone left tackle, Rashawn Slater, to a season-ending patella injury, so that really hurts their offensive line. It's another reason why I think they won't do as well as the Denver Broncos, because they took that massive blow to the offensive line. But I do think they are talented enough to, be third, and there's a possibility that 3 teams from this division make the playoffs, much like what happened last season. And the team that I think comes in 4th place is ultimately the Las Vegas Raiders. They're a team that they're very talented. They had, coach change from last year, bringing in Pete Carroll. Brought in Geno Smith at quarterback. He's still a very good quarterback. So he's getting up there in age. Still have Brock Bowers at tight end, one of the top tight ends in the league. Kobe Myers at receiver, who's Mr. Consistency. He's, going to get, 800-900 yards and around 8 touchdowns a season. They drafted Ashton Genty, the number 1 running back prospect in this year's draft. Their offense is good. There is some question marks about their offensive line. There's some question marks in their defense. So they still have Max Crosby, but they don't really have anybody to pair next to him as Christian Wilkins, who they were hoping would be the guy next to him. Last season, suffered a foot injury, missed most of the year, and then they wound up releasing him in the offseason. With some concerns with him. So if there's a big question mark for them, it is their defense and a little bit their offensive line. But also, they play in one of the top divisions in the NFL. I think it's the best division in the AFC, just talent-wise from top to bottom. So unfortunately, I think that will hold them back a lot. So I do think they ultimately finish in last place in the AFC West. Let me know who you guys think win the divisions, how teams will do. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time.